video. Okay, all right, last video. So one thing I want to go back to this question real quick because I realized I'm going to do this in red so you see it. I said all the signs switched, which I meant these signs, but I didn't switch them. Look, right? So the correct answer is still going to be -3, right? This is going to switch signs, so it's going to be greater than or equal to. These twos cancel out, so you're left with x. This sign is going to switch as well. It's going to be greater than or equal to. -4 divided by 2 is -2. So that means that x is going to be between -3 and -2. Okay. Now we're going to go to the last one. So, no, the second to last. Okay. So the questions like this, right? So you have a fraction less than or whatever 0. So you want to always set it equal to 0. So since this is already set less than or greater than 0, we can just go ahead and get started. So there's two things you got to do. You got to take the numerator and set it equal to 0 and solve. And then you got to do the same thing with the denominator. Take the denominator, set it equal to 0, and solve. All right, so over here with the numerator, right? So subtract 3, so we get 2r is equal to -3. Divide both sides by 2. So we get r is equal to -3 halves, which is -1.5. Here, we do the same thing. This is the denominator, right? So add 1, so we get 2r is equal to 0, no, is equal to 1. And then divide both sides by 2, so you get r is equal to 1/2. The only purpose of this is to help us figure out what numbers to put on the number line. So we have two numbers. So one of them is a negative, so we're going to write -3/2, and the other one is a positive 1/2. No other number really matters. Okay? So now, what we want to do next is we want to test points. So for example, what I mean by that is there's a 0 here, right? I could test 0. I could test like -3 right here, and over here I can test like 1. Okay. But first, one thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and test -3/2. So the way that we do that, the easiest way, let me just go ahead and go to the calculator, clear. So we want to take -3/2 and we want to put it wherever we see an r. So we're going to do 2 times -3/2, -3/2. And we're going to hit enter in the calculator, right? So we get -3 on top and do the same thing on the bottom. 2 times -3/2. Oh, we have to do -1, right? So that's going to be a -4 on the bottom. So we have right here when we plug in -3 halves, right? We're going to have -4 on the bottom. When we plug in -3 halves on the top, I forgot to take this right here, and it says add 3 to it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that number plus 3. So I get 0. So I get a 0 on the top. Right? So all I'm doing is I want to see if it's going to be open circle here or if it's going to be closed. So 0 divided by -4, I want to see if that's equal to, if that's less than 0. So 0 divided by -4 is 0. Is 0 less than 0? The answer is no, so it's going to be open circle. Here's a hint, right? If this is going to be less than, usually it's going to be open circle, but you want to test points just to make sure. So I'm going to do it, be a little bit more clear with the second point. So now I want to test 1/2. So I'm going to take this, do the same thing. I want to take 1/2 divided by 2, and I want to put it into r, which I'm going to call x, right? And so now I want to do this thing right here on top. So I'm going to put alpha y equals, and I'm just going to write the function. I'm just showing you that I can plug it in. So 2x plus 3 divided by, and on the bottom I'm going to do 2x minus 1. So I'm plugging it into the original, and I have to see if this is less than 0. So boom, automatically it's saying it's dividing by 0, right? Which makes sense because if I take 1/2 and I plug it in, I'm going to get 0. So over here again, I'm going to get, if I plug in 1/2, I'm going to get 0 is less than 0, which doesn't make sense. So it's going to be an open circle. So now I want to see whether I'm going to be shading in, left, right, or out. So let's go ahead and test numbers. So I'm going to take -3, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take -3, and I'm going to store it in to my calculator, so -3. You can't use the store button because you have the other calculator, but I'm just going to do this for sake of time. I know you know how to plug shit in. So alpha y equals, right? And so now I have on the top, I have 2x plus 3. On the denominator, I have 2x minus 1. And I want to see if this number is less than 0. So since it's positive, this is not less than 0, so this is not true, so I'm not shading anywhere here. The next thing I want to do is pick a number like 0, right? So this is easy. That's 0. 3 divided by -1. 3 divided by -1 is less than 0, which means that all of this right here is going to be shaded. And then if I test 1 and I plug it in, all right, so I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to replace the -3 with a 1. Delete, so I'm taking 1, storing it into x. And again, you're going to have to work this out because you don't have this calculator. And I want to see if this is true, right? Is 5 less than 0? The answer is no, so I'm not shading here at all. So my answer is going to be from -3/2 less than x. So x is in between -3/2 and +1/2. It's going to be in between there, right? Which is why I'm shading here. So this is not great or, this is less than, right? So this right here is going to be my final answer. This is where my graph starts. It's open circle, so no equal sign. This is where my graph stops, so open circle again, no equal sign. Okay. Let's go ahead, and you said I could do one more. So here's this one, same thing, right? I'm going to go ahead and just create some room. Okay. Let's go ahead and erase this just in case I need a little bit more room. Okay. So the two things that I have is 3x plus 2 equals 0, and I have 2x minus 3 equals 0. And that gives us our points to put on the number line. So subtract 2, so you get 3x is equal to -2. And divide by 3, you get x is equal to -2/3. Do the same thing here, add 3, so 2x is equal to 3. Divide by 2, x is equal to 3/2. The two numbers on the number line, again, are -2/3. 3 and 3/2. So I see that, I'm going to do this, let's just do it in black, right? So I see it's greater than or equal to, so it's going to be closed circles here, closed circle here. And the next thing we want to do is test a number between -2/3 and 3/2. 0 is the easiest number to test, so I want to test 0. So if I put 0 on top, 3 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2, so I have a 2 on the top, over. That's 0. 2 divided by -3 is not greater than or equal to 0. So I'm not shading here at all, which means that chances are I'm probably going to be shading this way. And again, I can test that. Let's go ahead and plug in the number -2 in. So I have 3 times -2 plus 2 over. And over here, if I plug -2 in, I have 2 times -2 minus 3, and I have to see if this is going to give me greater than or equal to 0. So 2 times -3 is -6 plus 2 over -4 minus 3. See if it has to see if it's going to give me a positive number. This is -6 plus 2 is -4 over -7, greater than or equal to 0, and this is a true statement because negative divided by negative is positive 4/7, and 4/7 is greater than or equal to 0. So this is true, so it works here, and it's going to work here as well. Okay, so I just did 2 problems like that. This last concept, I know you did it in Algebra 1. We're going to do it again right now. So their absolute value, this is protected right here, so you just rewrite it, right? X plus 2 equals. You write it again, x plus 2 equals. This right here, though, is not protected, so it gets a positive punch, right? It stays positive, and it gets negative. So we have x plus 2 equals 3. Of course, the number that makes that true is 1. Here, the number that makes this true, subtract 2 from both sides, is -5. So now what you do is, now what you do is put those numbers on a number line. So we have -5 and +1. The concept here is the same as in the previous problem. So it's equal to, right? Oh, there's no inequality here. So this is it. Because there's no less than or greater than sign, you're done. X equals 1 and x equals -5. You don't even need to do that crap. This one, same exact thing, right? So r minus 5 is protected, so you write r minus 5 equals 1/2. And then the second thing is, again, this is protected, so you leave it alone. R minus 5 is equal to negative 1/2. And then you just solve, right? So r, add 5 to both sides, so you get r equals 5 and 1/2. Here you add 5 to both sides, and you get r is equal to 4 and 1/2. So those are your two answers. So 5 minus 1/2 is 4 1/2. Two answers, and you're done.